Hey everybody, it's Achilles Justice here with Philosophy Society. It's December 20th, 2023. We are at a different location today because Toronto Metropolitan University is closed for 3 weeks. So one of our members found us a cafe close, and we were in that cafe. It's called Twilight Cafe. It's a game cafe, and they have a room in the back. So we're going to use that room briefly to talk about some stuff. So last week, I was communicating about our way of being and how we live our lives. And fundamentally, what you do in your day and like managing like sleeping and your diet and your social relationships affects you over time. And it almost is like an emotional tax. And you kind of choose where you spend your emotions throughout the day. And over time, it'll affect how, it'll determine how effective you are at achieving goals, or how much cognitive capacity you have in the moment to take advantage of an opportunity, if that opportunity exists. But if you're overwhelmed and stressed out, there could be $5 on the ground, and because you're in your mind, you're not even going to notice it, right? So a big part of like well-being, when we talk about well-being, that could just be like maintaining your existing state, like not sustaining damage, like just staying at a plateau, like not going down, right? But that's not, if that's well-being, or that's like the bare minimum, like the absence of mental illness, right? Like you could say, is the house good? If you mean it's not on fire, that's good. But if you didn't pay the utilities and there's no heat in there, no electricity, it wouldn't be good, right? So there's more to it than just that, or that the people in there are happy and they're having like a good lifestyle or whatever, right? So harm or damage can't be the only criteria that we're evaluating where we're at in our lives, right? And so as you're going through life, you're going to have these goals and stuff, okay? And as you go through the day, like the goal might be very challenging. Like being in school is a challenging goal, for example. Or some people have a job that's very taxing on them, right? And what that does is, even though they get the money thing solved, like some source of income, the burden of those social relationships and the emotions involved with them can kind of set them back, right? It's called emotional labor. Like workplace bullying is an example, or you just feel uncomfortable in the workplace or at home, What we want to do is last time I talked about being empirical or being objective in some ways. And the way that I approach that is talking about like what is, So when we as an example on the table, it's like what's on the table? You could be in the other room and there's probably a plate or there's probably like glasses, just because your schema of tables in a restaurant, usually there's plates and glasses, maybe a menu, but you may not think that there's a laptop that's like online and there's people doing stuff with them. So you guys see what I'm saying, right? There's what's going on today.
You said being empirical, but what is? What is?
So what is?
Good luck.
Is we are observing that in existence, the thing in existence.
The emotion, or the events.
Emotions can be one of them. I remember we talked about the object of the emotion. If you have some feelings, you feel something, right? There's usually something in the environment or in your mind that is evoking that feeling within you. Now, when I say what is the connection. What is good? What is justice? What is an apple, right? So the is the copula, the thing that connects the ideas together, right? It almost forms an identity relationship. One is one. What we're looking for here is, I'm trying not to use is when I speak, that way it's not circular. Because if I use the same term, it can become circular reasoning, which would be a fallacy. So when I communicate these ideas, I want to make sure that I avoid those kinds of patterns of thought, because then what I'm saying won't make sense, right? And that's part of the philosophy training. So when you guys do more training. When you take a few courses in university, that's what or if you do the courses on my class stuff on the website, then it's supposed to teach you that, right? But I don't assume responsibility for all that. You can just take courses at the university. It's just easy. Just do it. They're ready to go, right? And so when we say what is, it's another way of saying what exists. Because the is the thing that exists. This is there. This is that. Right? This is water. It is over there. And so the word is indicating that there's something of existence. And so we want to, and that's part of what being objective is, and observing things. What do you mean by that? Right? When someone says something, you can say, well, what do you mean by that? Is it real?
So being empirical is the what, and being Socratic is the what.
Yeah, sure. Very good. That was very good. Very good. And so we can impose assumptions on the world, and we can make value judgments about the world, like it's good, it's bad, right? Someone likes wheat beer, someone doesn't. They can say this is my palate, this is my taste. But that's a different thing than just observing what is. And so to be scientific and to be empirical is to step back from your preconceptions or step back from your personal tastes and just observe what exists. And so when we look at our own lives, this is really what self-awareness is. Or when the Oracle of Delphi says, know thyself, or in the inscription in the temple, it said, know thyself, right? And the reason this is important, and it's the same thing that Socrates says in the Apology, an unreflected life is not worth living. That's when Socrates was being put to death. And why did he say that? Why is it so important that we think about our life? Like, how do we get here? Like you were doing some reflection today. We're talking about time management and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And for you, and that's you're observing your life and you're saying, what is? How did I get here? What happened today? And what can I do to change it a little bit so that the next present moment will be better than this one?
How was the first go again? Like a life not thought?
An unreflected life is not worth living. And the reason for this, and Nietzsche talks about this in The Eternal Recurrence, is that if you're presented with the same life over and over and over again, right? It's the same life. You have to repeat this life over and over and over again. Do you feel joy, or are you taking it back? And you're like, no, I don't want it. Do you affirm your life? Do you say, yes, I will live this life? Or if you got to live the same life every moment for eternity, just over and over, you're just going to keep on living the same life, would you do it? Right?
Yeah.
And so if you, at any moment in your life, say, no, I don't want to live this life, that is an existential issue with what, like, the remedy to this is, what can you do differently? Right? And so what do we really mean by that? Like somebody, if they're super religious, they may say, I just got to pray more. I'm going to pray to God, and God will take care of me. But is that like, there are a lot of people in the world that are praying. Is it making a difference for all of them? Like, for example, if
you can't just pray, you can't just trust on that and not do anything else, maybe.
So even if we'll assume God exists in this argument. If God exists, God gave you the power of free will, so you can just do it yourself. Yeah. It's not up to God to do stuff for you. That's why God gave you a conscious mind, so you can make decisions. But the decisions you're making, what are they based on? Yeah. If they're based on something that's not real, or you're inaccurate in your observation, it's not really there, the data's wrong, then your decision is not going to be effective, because it's like if I go to jump somewhere and I miscalculate the distance of the gap, I can fall down the hole, right? So they said, well, you got to wear your glasses so you can see correctly. That way, when you're driving, you don't smash into somebody, right?
Yeah.
That's what we mean when we say what is. We want to be accurate in our evaluation or assessment of what actually exists, and then about ourselves. And so when you talk about yourself, and you're thinking about my life, so I'll do it for myself. I'm thinking about my life. What is my life? Right? Well, my life is I'm awake and I'm doing things. I'm associating with people, and these activities throughout my life have some effect on me. It's doing something. And we could ambiguously, like psychologists will say this could be like psychobabble, but just for ease of conversation, you could say that it reduces your energy, or we could say cognitive capacity, right? My attention and the emotions I'm displaying or using throughout the day. I have to choose, or you can even just simply say where I spend my time, right? And so if a situation is affecting you negatively, it is taking you away from utilizing your being, your existence, on something that could be really, really beneficial. Because you look at some people in the world, and we would say they're very successful, right? This person is super successful. They have money, they're happy. There's all these properties we can do to evaluate the success in their life. So they have, well, we want to be like them. And so, well, what do? Actually, you can just say that it's random and it's by chance and be deterministic. Oh, it's never going to work out for me, right? But then you're kind of just giving up control. If you had any control, you're giving up whatever that control would be, right? I would say let's falsify a thesis first. The thesis that you do have some control in life. You're not just a rock. Like, what is the rock going to do, or even the tree? There's not really any choice at all for those beings. The rock being, it just exists. It doesn't have autonomy. It's not a conscious being. But us that have consciousness, when we reflect on what has occurred and observe what is going on now, because sometimes our memory can get a little fucked. We may be selective and pick out certain data and only pay attention to that data, like the self-serving bias. We always think we're better than average. It's just a tendency humans have. And that's in some ways to bolster our self-esteem. We want to feel good about ourselves, right? So it's important to be accurate and not have it negatively affect our self-esteem, right? Because then your motivation can be inhibited, which isn't going to be good for you. But if you created an illusion like a narcissist that's not real, then your decisions are being made on something that doesn't actually exist. And so we don't really know where we're going to end up exactly. But you can have a general idea. We talked about values recently. These are my values, right? And then I have principles that I'm going to apply in certain situations, and then behavioral habits that is the mechanism for me executing the principle to achieve the value, which will lead me to the goal. And so we could say that I have a goal of having a family, for example, or a goal of like an authentic, intimate partner, being in love with someone that loves me back. Those could be values that somebody puts. Or someone wants to have like financial stability or own a house. That's like a goal, right? And there's different ways that you can get to that goal. But what we're doing in the day, that's how we're getting there. That's how you're walking to get there. So if you're walking somewhere without shoes, you can get there, but you may die on the way because you stepped on a bunch of glass, or let's say there was needles on the ground. You got some weird infection or something like that, some issue biologically. It'll kill you, right? So how we go about doing it is what really matters. And those successful people, because there's young people that are very successful too. In some ways, I would like to say, like, there is time and place, and they may be in the right place, but there are other people around those people that were also in that spot. So why wasn't the case that they were successful? And so one way we can look at luck, is the combination between opportunity and preparedness. Because opportunities exist. And that's what I said earlier about having the mind to see. And our current life or lives may be taking away the sharpness of the mind so that you can't see. And that just falls down to sometimes we get really used to the way things are, which is habituation. It's a form of learning, right? It's like a folklore example where if you put a frog in boiling water, it'll jump out. If you slowly raise the temperature, it'll stay there and boil itself. I think it's actually a true case, but the moral of the parable is just that we get used to things, whereas if we just came into the situation without it growing on us, we would just eject ourselves. Like, I'm not going to be part of this. It feels uncomfortable, right? And so that's part of what I'm saying about what is. Trying to be objective and remove yourself from yourself. And that is self-awareness in some ways. And we can get that through predominantly reflection. And a lot of the times you just need to have time alone by yourself. Maybe you need to sleep a lot, just sleep and let your brain process everything. And then you'll be able to have the awareness and then make a decision.
So if you're unable to have privacy, let's say that you have certain external excruciating stimuli or it prevents you from being alone. I never thought about the sleep thing. You're allowing the brain to know where to be on its own. Like, what if, because everyone needs alone, everyone needs privacy, right? So, what do you do when that's not really possible?
So
Patience?
this is very good. So there's one, I think that you're going to have to find a private place. Because like humans at a certain degree, throughout all of our history, you could have left the tribe and went into the forest by yourself and then came back. Right? And so you have to kind of feel that out. And then when you leave the forest, part of the planning would be you want to have a sustainable environment. That's where your home is supposed to be. Right? And so if your current shelter does not provide that, it is one of the, for your growth, it is almost necessary to make that one of the first decisions, to have a place where you do have some privacy that is respected. Now, if there are other people in your life, you can establish boundaries with them and say, hey, this is my boundary, please respect it. But they may not.
But they don't.
Right? So if they don't, then like that's where it's like you have to value yourself.
What else people call it? You have to respect this. You leave you alone to continue to have bug you, annoy you.
Parasitic.
Parasitic, or is that psychopathic? Narcissistic?
Yeah, well, it's hard to just label their psychology in general, but the behavior itself, like they're not treating you with respect. And they may be habituating it. Like if, for example, it's your parents, they may just see you as a child still, even though you're like a fully grown adult.
Yeah.
And this is why we move out. This is the reason why we do that.
Yeah.
Right? And then
Because you get kept captive in the ideology they have. I'm sure you same thing. So I guess bird leaves a nest. Nowhere to grow.
yes.
Come back later, maybe. I'm sure.
Well, you can go back, but you go back on your own terms, and then you can go back to your home. Your home is yours. It's not, there's a difference between shelter and home. Shelter is protecting you from the environment. A home is a place where you can grow and you're safe. So if your current shelter does not have those two properties, we need to relocate our shelter. We're not trees. Like we're animals. We can move around. And so this is fundamental. So we go back to the first thing I talked about. Like there's just not taking damage. Like I'm not depressed. Okay, well, are you growing though? And so like eudaimonia is to live well, right? And Aristotle's version of that is like being virtuous and having a life of contemplation. And even if we go with the contemplation part, to be able to have the freedom to think you could also see that as like a form of growth. To have so much freedom that you can just think about shit all day, right? On your own accord. It's not like being in prison where you're condemned to think because you're like not allowed to do anything. The freedom to do so. You're gonna have an environment that's conducive to that. An environment that allows you to think about things on your own terms. And this comes down to like a self-respect thing. You have to love yourself enough to say, I am going to take the heat. I'm going to allow myself this pressure away from what this other environment is doing to me so that I can be an independent, autonomous person. That's important.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not allowing yourself to be fully human. You've stunted your development. And so there are those opportunities going by, but because you're so stressed out about this weird relationship in your life, you don't even see it. You don't even have the love inside of you for yourself to be able to entertain some beautiful thing that's sitting right in front of you.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've went out many times dancing, and there have been the women love me. There's some women that just fucking love me, and because my daily habits are not balanced enough, or I have some weird relationship things in my life.
Yeah.
I can't even have fun with this person. I can't even be like, I can't be myself with them. I'm like very like closed off, and they feel that. They're like, well, that guy's not ready. The love is out there. And women are waiting for a good man. They're like, I wish there was just one good man. I just need one good man that will, but you have to be a good man to yourself first, right? You can be there's the acorn, and then it germinates, and then it's like a little seedling, then it's a small tree, but you need to be the oak tree that is producing acorns. That's what she wants. She doesn't want a seedling. Right? Or like a little bit of a bigger tree that's going to get knocked over. You need to be a tree. You need to be a man.
Yeah.
And this, and so self-love, this goes back to the self-love thing. Self-love fundamentally is what? It's feeling something for yourself, but it's also making decisions and doing things that are necessarily good for you. Like the other day, I had to get groceries. I didn't want to leave the house. I was like, ugh. I didn't feel like it, but I made myself go, and whatever money I had, I bought the groceries I could afford at the time. I didn't even cook that stuff. I ate like maybe some fruit or vegetables as soon as I got back. Then later I made dinner because I was able to do that. So in the moment, if I didn't do that, I would have ended up getting like fast food or something. And in the past, I would do that. And then I thought about it, like, am I going to spend $16 on one meal, right?
Yeah.
Where that could last me like almost 3 or 4 days, depending on how I spend it. Right?
Yeah, I hear you. I'm starting to do that myself. Like, just eating out a bunch, and like, just because I didn't want to hang out at home and make stuff, and it's like now it's like. Just the other day, I made like 4 meals or something. Amount of 4 meals healthier than what I would have gotten out, and it cost like $8. It's great, Yeah.
$8 each? Or
No, for the whole thing. Damn. Yeah. Well, if you make like noodles, like a bunch of veggies, and I use beans.
For protein, no, that's
It's this time instead of meat. So and then, yeah, so
Great. What were you going to say?
I think I asked you, what was your shifting point from like being, I don't want to go, I don't feel like going out. What was that sentence that convinced you in order to go?
So this
is it a money thing?
No. So it's like, so part of it is I have associated an awareness of not doing this. So when I'm in that situation, I've created a little cognitive module to be like, hey, you've been in this situation before. When you go down this path, it leads to these negative consequences. It's experiential, right? So even though you don't feel like this, I was told myself this. And for me to remember, this is the reflection part. I stopped and I was like, what am I going to do right now? And I was dealing with some things, some stress. And so that morning I lied in bed a little longer until I was able to make a constructive decision, until that was the next thing, whatever it was. I didn't know what it was because I felt I was really dealing with some stuff. And so I just stayed there and like rested and breathed and meditated until I was able to say, this is the next best thing to do. Of all the things that are going on in my life right now, the next best thing for my growth would be this thing. And so whatever I need to do that, that's what I need to focus on. What we're doing throughout the day, it's important to not just have like I'm not going to be damaged mindset. We want to have an excess energy, an abundance of energy, so that I can take the things in the cosmos that are there. There's something out there. Like when we leave this place, we're going to go socialize a little bit, right? And there will be people that could be your new best friend. It could be your wife. It could be a business partner. There's so many things out there. But if you are emotionally depleted, if you're tired, right? If you're socially awkward because you've just dealt with a bunch of weird social shit, and so you're just not ready to even be friends with somebody, you're not gonna. The person's gonna be like, oh, yeah. They're not gonna want to. They're not gonna feel comfortable associating with you. And it's not you per se. It's where you're at in your life right now. And so the wisdom here is don't ever let yourself be there. That's for all of us. Like if shit happens to you, you got to learn to steer the ship up. You have to go. Whoop. You can't just be like, just like surviving through life. We want to be flourishing. Like you want to be blossoming every day, right? And being an adult is really learning how to arrange your life in such a way so that that's the case. Like the flower points itself to the sun and then will close itself at nighttime, and point itself to the sun and close itself at nighttime, right? When you're depressed, it's like you're closed all the time. Or if you're stressed out, it's like you're not really taking the sunlight in. That's growth. And for humans, growth in a lot of ways is other people. You could have your own mission and you're really in your mission. And so we want to be, when I say what is and being objective, it's like, look at today. What am I doing right now that's actually fucking with me? And how can I change something today? How can I make a little bit of a different step? Because that little step, if you make those steps, let's say 10 times a day, and then you add that over time, it's actually a lot. And we just don't notice it because it's so small. You just think, whatever, and you're used to it. You're like, I've been always doing it this way. And so the first step is like pulling your head out of the water and like seeing in the air. And if you have to go back down, you can do that, but you need to pull yourself up. That's the self-awareness thing. And that's where sometimes if you're lying down in the morning, whenever you wake up, if you still feel tired, just stay there. Because whatever decision you make in that state of mind is probably not going to be what you need to do. Because your body is telling you what you need to do. You need to not fucking move. You need to breathe. That's all you got to do.
Also, responsibility. But I see your point. Body's not just state.
If you got to go to work, then obviously, yeah. But if you're working too much, or you're not sleeping enough, you don't feel rested. Like I am 70% rested right now. I can feel myself. Maybe I'm burnt out because I just had a fucking double shot espresso. But even so, I feel like fatigued. Like there's a little bit of me that's a little tired. So I'm not 100%.
Yeah.
You want to be 100% to deal with the day. Because like, what if you go downtown and like some crazy person like tries to fight you, or someone pulls out a gun somewhere and you're like a little tired?
But adrenaline kicks in that too.
Maybe. Sure.
Fight or flight.
Maybe you didn't see it because you're so tired.
Oh, and that's not a reaction.
Like the environment is a dangerous place. There's that side of it too, right? And we forget that because we're not like Louis C.K. makes a joke how we're like, we're at the top of the food chain. Things would be different if you had to like run away from a cheetah every day you went to work. Oh, you got a fucking cheetah today, right?
I prefer that. Like, that's a bunch.
Yeah. So when we talk about what is, it's focusing on what actually exists in your day that you have control over, like sleep and then diet, right? And then exercise, and then other decisions relative to your trajectory in life. And each one of our trajectories are a little bit different. Well, very different, but and so there are universal things that it's good for all of us to do, like sleep, eat, exercise, just because we're human. But then there are personal things that are important for you to do, like laundry. Maybe today you need to do laundry, but I actually don't, right? Or I had to fix something in the bathroom today. That's something that I had to do. The caulking was all moldy and gross, so I had to take a knife and cut it all out and then put new caulking in and then let it dry. Right? You guys don't have to do that. That's my personal life. Maybe at some point in your life you'll have to do that. Or like I have an essay to write on Wittgenstein. You guys don't have to do that. Maybe at some point you may, unlikely, but that's my personal life. Maybe you have to fix something on your car, or you have to get your glasses fixed, right? And so it's important to have the universal things that are important for humans in general to do because you're human, but then the personal things that are important for you to do because you're you, and you're the only you that you can be. There's no other yous you can be. That's not how it works, right? The TV can have different TV shows on it, but as a being, there's like one self. You are that person. And so how effective are you at being that person? We cannot dismiss the human properties of what we are. That's the foundation of your existence in some ways. Because from that's like the soil that you grow from, the sleeping and the eating and like the other maintenance stuff, like getting laundry done and shit, right? And then there's your relationships with people. That's really important as well. And then we want to get to the point where we can increase the capacity of an open mind, right? Like the catcher's mitt. I'm waiting for the ball. That's what being on the ball is. I'm waiting for the ball. You want to be waiting for the opportunities that are out there. You're so ready for them. And then you accumulate that for long enough, and then see how successful you are. But to get to that point, there is, I would say, a philosophy or which includes a psychology behind it. And together, those things, that's where you're going to find true success. And you can't really say what it is, right? You have to do, it's a journey. You have to walk that path, and it's your path. But that's what we have as human beings, as people. And it goes back to our values, principles, and habits. And then that will get us to our goal. And with that structure, if you put it with the human universal things and your personal things, now you can begin your experience and take in what you see around you and make the best of it. I didn't know what to talk about today. I was thinking I was going to read you guys Plato. And I was like, maybe I was going to read you guys critical thinking. And I was like, maybe I'll read you guys this thing. And I was like, maybe we'll go through the website. We'll read the organizational mandate. And I just went back to, I'm going to talk about what I think that you two people need to hear.
That's cool.
And I try to do that every time. Right?
Nice.
What are some other good questions?
No, because I was really relating to it, like everything we talked about, like just about, sometimes need to take a minute out, half an hour out to like just sit there, chill, think clearly and slowly, and decide what your plan is like next, instead of just, you might have a plan, but you might feel weird about it just yet. So it's like you sit down, you think about it. I totally like vibe with that big time. I've been doing that lately.
The question is, what am I doing? Remember we asked that before? What am I doing? And then why am I doing it? And if it doesn't make sense, if you don't feel good about it, it's important to figure that out. You were going to say something?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you, you mentioned, unlucky life is not always good. So what are some good questions you can ask yourselves? One is like, one that you said, what's the next best thing I can do for my growth on that, in that moment? Like, what about some like other questions that you could ask yourself that are how do you progress?
So we want to observe. That's why I said, what is?
Is like observing your thoughts or like observing your lifestyle?
Observe your thoughts, observe your feelings. Okay, so on the website, type in reflective mind map. And those are almost all of the different things that you can reflect on. There's thoughts, there's feelings, there's our social relationships. And the things that are the most important are the things that are affecting you most frequently or most intensely. Right? Or the things that are like taking away from your optimal growth. Right? Like maybe no one's pissing in the flower pot, but it's blocking out the sun. That's not good. Right? So what are the can you read them to me? There's 8 things there.
So elements of the mind are emotions, how am I feeling right now? Situations, what happened, what is going on.
Very good.
People, who is involved in what meaning do they have?
Yeah.
States, what is going on in the body?
Yeah.
Environmental assessment, what is going on around me?
Yeah.
Training and habit progress, what progress have been made in habits that are good for me to cultivate, and the ones I could do without.
Mm-hmm.
Reflective mindful meditation, what other things that I cannot think of are actually thought. Action plan and visualization. Now that I've assessed my mind, what can I do with the information I have found?
There you go. That's pretty comprehensive.
Right.
Right? I had that one tucked away for you. I was like,
Yeah, very good.
So yeah, right. And then that's an ongoing process. And then we want to monitor our growth, and then things are going to change, like the lean startup method. It's an iterative process, but it really comes down to being empirical and objective, focusing on what is, and then working with that, because that's reality. That's what actually exists, not someone's opinion or their bias. And so you're going to observe it once, but then you're going to observe it again and again from different perspectives and different states. And we will get closer to what the truth really is. Right?
It's a personal truth.
Well, truth, like it's, when I say the truth, I just mean like, just, we want to take away the bias stuff. Right? We want it to be real and accurate.
Yeah.
I don't want it to say that it's subjective, because someone could say that it means that it's not valuable or meaningful because it's only relative to you. But like I said, like if you're not sleeping, that would apply to anybody. You know, anybody in your situation would still feel that way, right? We want to be empathetic and compassionate. So I just, the subjective truth thing or truth for you, that could be, we could reduce meaningfulness if
people should be empathetic and compassionate.
Yeah, it's best for that. Yeah.
And what if they're just not, like especially organizations? What if they're not compassionate? Soulless, yeah.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that. Maybe we'll say that for the next time.
Sure.
Remind me next week. Okay, I'm gonna end it here because
I don't think soulless, just like not compassionate.
There's a dehumanizing factor,
Understanding.
and there's a way that organizations today may be structured in such a way to be very business oriented.
Yeah.
And they just dehumanize people, and you're just used as a means to an end. And that's an ethical criticism of the way organizations function. And there are better organizations that don't do that.
Yeah.
They have other forms of leadership. So if you could take
Those are leadership, that's a problem. They're the ones that are implementing that belief system and methodology.
Yeah, it's like the corporate culture, how they treat the people that are part of
It
it.
all comes from the leader, from the CEO.
Part of it, yes. But it could just be policies. That person got hired and they're working with those policies,
Mhm.
right?
Somebody agreed to the people.
Nice.
It might even be like the people above the CEO.
We'll just call it the company, which includes the person and the rules they're following.
But if he's in charge of the company, he can change it. Right?
It depends. If there's a board of directors, they might have power that the CEO doesn't.
Sure.
So that's where I employ you to take organizational behavior. That's the first course, and then the next course is leadership. They're both in the human resources department at the university. I've done both of the classes, and it'll answer it'll show you all the information about this. Right? It's important. All right.